Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 24th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona-Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. Between them, they've covered Penn State for more than 75 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Anderly Penwell, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, attorneys at law, Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona-Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
Hi, and welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime with the NitWits. I am Anderly Penwell, and I'm joined by the NitWits, Mark Brennan, Neil Rudell, and our guest for the day, Mike Irwin. He was the captain of the 1966 team. So, guys,
it's
welcome
good to
back.
be here with such an illustrious group.
Right off the bat, he comes out swinging.
I used to be with these
You
guys
have no
all the
control
time.
over him.
I used to do this frequently, but now they've limited me to a number of occasions.
Good to see you, pal. That was by your choice.
An original nitwit.
An original nitwit. So, huge win against Auburn last night. Great atmosphere to start. What most impressed you? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I mean, number one, let's talk about the atmosphere. I mean, just unbelievable. If you talk about a whiteout and all the hype leading up to it, it exceeded the hype, in my view. Just a great job by the fans showing up, having that whiteout for the first time since 2019. And then on the field, you know, this was another instance of Penn State not playing a perfect game, but grinding it out, performing in the clutch, and doing what it needed to do. Now you're looking at a team that's won 2 games over top 25 opponents in its first 3 games for the first time in school history, and that's saying something for Penn State with its illustrious history.
Absolutely, and I think they, with their performance last night, have now can control their destiny this season, and they have raised the bar. I think one thing, you know, a lot of coaches aren't looking for at Wisconsin to open the season. And I'm not even convinced James was that crazy about Auburn. He said, somebody asked him last week, where did this game come from? How was it formed? And he said, well, our administrations wanted to play. But what that has done for this team in terms of their development and their confidence, I don't think can be underestimated.
You know, that has to be one of the greatest venues
Yeah.
that's ever been around. I mean, I love the whiteout, and like Neil's saying, a lot of these recruits are there, and they're looking at this whiteout, and I think it's really attracting people.
Yeah, they're
really
all
helps
whole
in the recruitment of the, you know, the players coming up now. It really helps.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen that many recruits at a Penn State game.
was
And
good.
I have seen a lot of recruits at Penn State game. That's a big part of what we do at Lions 247. And, you know, I'm down there kind of taking photos of recruits, and they kept coming and coming and coming and coming. You know, Penn State already has, as of this taping, the #1 recruiting class in the nation. And to be able to bring those kids in not only from this year, but from the 2023, 2024, and even 2025 classes, that was huge as well.
Where did the loud or noise level rank? Because for me, it was my first whiteout. So much fun.
Well, you
could,
tell
like,
us.
Feel it in the
No,
stadium.
you tell us.
You could feel it. You could like almost feel the vibrations on the field. It was so loud, and a sea of white. So I mean, it was super loud for me. But what do you guys think? How did that rank?
Well, I thought it was, at one point, it was the loudest that I had ever heard. And, James had said during the week that most of the guys that have come to Penn State have experienced a whiteout. And they kind of have this whole thing rolling right now. Hey, they were only 6-6 in whiteout games, but to play this one earlier and a non-conference opponent, hey, let's face it, most of the whiteout games are either Ohio State and Michigan, and a lot of times they've been ranked in the top 5. I think they're going to get a lot out of this game.
It sure was fun. What offensively impressed you guys? I thought Yurcich's play calls, particularly a couple of them, were
I'll tell you what
creative.
impressed me is Sean Clifford, 28 out of 32 passes.
Yeah.
We were talking that's like 7 out of 8, so he only missed 1 out of every 8 passes.
We're not good at math here, Mike.
Well, I know Neil isn't. I want to remind him because I know his math is a little questionable. But anyway.
Well, 12 in a row in the second half he made. Absolutely. It was his best game as a Penn State quarterback. Just terrific. And the grit that he is showing and the toughness. He took a real shot at the end of the first half. His connection with Yurcich. Yurcich's diversity to the offense, I don't think, we thought, geez, that's pretty tough what they did to Shiraka, but it really looks like it's paying off.
Listen, they've had confidence in Sean Clifford even when he was struggling, and Yurcich now has put him in a spot where they get up to the line and Clifford could make reads. And what he's doing is taking what the defense is giving him, whether it's running on the play we just saw there or checking down. I mean, he's done it just unbelievably, and he's not making the key mistakes. He's even saying that. So, the one pick that he had, maybe Neil and I were debating it a little bit. Listen, that was almost as effective as a punt when he did it. You don't want that to happen, but if it's going to happen, do it there, not when you're in your own territory. So I just think the way he's managing the game is tremendous. He has great weapons around him. All of a sudden, he got the tight ends involved. Because they hadn't been as involved the first couple games. And even if the running game isn't working against this caliber of opponent, take what the opponent's giving you until they force you to do something else.
And Sean's even said that he's incredibly confident. In the first touchdown to Dotson, where he was just sitting in the pocket, I was in the back of the end zone, and he had all the time in the world. And he talked about that post game. At one point, he said he had about 9 seconds for one of his passes in the pocket, and he just, of course, gave all the credit.
And one of the other things, having the quarterback under center, we've talked about this for years because it really affects the running game because the running backs would be back, 4 or 5 yards, and the quarterback would hand him the ball back there, and then he'd expect him to go. So they never had a good shot at getting to the hole early. So, his whole offensive scheme, I'm surprised Franklin let him come in and put the quarterback under center.
Well, this is the first time.
They swore to it for a number of years that they weren't going to do that, right?
Right, and they're running the quarterback less, but they're in and out of under center. They're in and out of shotgun. They got multiple looks. They ran the Wildcat yesterday, and I think this is a lot of Yurcich and the imprint and the stamp he's putting on this offense.
And defensively, sorry to cut you
Well,
off.
let me throw one more thing on offense, Anderly. I think we tend to overlook a guy who's having a magnificent year in Dotson.
Yeah.
10 catches, wasn't breaking the long ones. Why? Because they weren't letting him go long. So what does he do? He starts working underneath, makes another one-handed catch. That guy is as good a receiver as they've had. He's performing at such a level. The decision to come back after last year, he had a great year last year, he's really helping himself NFL draft.
Yeah, and that's saying something because these last 5 years or so, that's been their top position.
Absolutely.
And then defensively.
And the other guy, Parker Washington,
Yeah.
is very capable also. He's doing really well.
Clifford has weapons around, but on the other side of the ball. Also, they came in clutch a couple times last night.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Listen, they're not perfect throughout the game, but when the game is on the line, what do? They come through with 2 huge stops, one in the red zone and one just outside of the red zone. The level of confidence this group is playing with. Neil, when you talk about the early season games, these tough early season games, I think this is invaluable. I think what they did against Wisconsin helped them against Auburn. And I think what those 2 games are going to do as the season goes along, you're going to be in these tight games in the Big Ten. They've proved they could win it with their defense making clutch stops.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the trips they have. They have Iowa State. Now Michigan State is coming around. Maryland is improving. Michigan looks like they're as good as anybody in the league. What an exciting season that this schedule has helped make.
Well, they have good athletes almost every position
Yeah.
out there. Now, I'd say the only weakness has been the running game a little bit. I mean, they have some good runners, but they're not all-American runners or anything like that. But I think they're all improved. They had a couple potentially really good runners. I think Kane and Lee and the other kid that transferred from
Lovett.
Love it.
Lovett
He
that
did a nice
transferred
job.
How'd you
in.
like how he played? I loved it.
Okay, on
You're such
that,
a wordsmith.
on that wonderful note, thank you, Mark. We will take a quick break, and coming up, there is a bit of a run concern, as Mike said, but also some SEC officiating questions, that and more on Nittany Nation Overtime.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. Penn State, of course, beating Auburn Saturday night, highlighted by a really bizarre play that I don't think any of us have ever seen. So let's take a look at it. In the second quarter here, James Franklin absolutely freaking out because the SEC officiating crew basically makes Penn State punt on a third down. You can see it on the graphics. Even the broadcast crew got it wrong and said it was fourth. James furious here and clearly yelling at the official. Overall bizarre situation. The fans in the stands, in my opinion, didn't really notice it. The broadcast crew after the fact, about a drive later. Just super weird. Have we ever seen this before? And what are your guys' reactions to what even went on?
To me, this is inexcusable. I mean, I get that the officials or the chain gang or whoever could make a mistake, but when you have a replay official up in the booth who can help you with this thing, and they don't get this solved, I just think it's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. For the SEC to come out and make a statement afterward, that's very rare for them to do. I've been covering college football a long time. Mike played a lot of football and has followed it. And Anderly, you've been around. Neil's covered football forever. I have never seen anything like that, ever. And I still can't believe that happened.
Yeah, they really lost control of the game. And the fact that it's an SEC crew and a lot of bang spots, non-calls, even the grounding. The first grounding really shouldn't have been called. You know, the receiver broke off a route. It wasn't like he was under duress, was trying to get rid of it. Then there was another call that they didn't make that really could have been grounding against Auburn. There's a list of probably 10 things that most of which went against Penn State. Beano Cook always used to say these big intersectional games should be worked by neutral crews. There's
That
a lot of
seems so
official.
logical.
There's a lot of pressure on these officials. The money involved today, one loss can take you out or in and out of the playoff. It just was. I thought James should have called timeout at that point in the game, and maybe that would have bought, like at Wisconsin when they on the targeting call. I think they could have done that, but he did make us think about it initially, and this falls to the feet of the SEC.
You know, fortunately, the third down play wasn't a factor in the outcome of the game.
They are lucky
But
for
there
that.
was the one where they made the first down when the fullback or the Mustafa, they pushed him forward. I think he clearly made a first down, but they moved him back. So they had a couple bad spots on the line. One time they gave Penn State a first down, then they reversed their call. On
And
other
the broadcast
one,
crew even, alluded to the fact was, hey, was that a makeup call for it? But it just overall was super bizarre situation. Were there any other concerns that you guys saw offensively or defensively yesterday?
The run game, Kane has had 40 carries now in the last two games. He's a hard runner, but they're not maybe busting out as well as you would think they should. So their offensive line, they allowed no sacks on their offensive line, but they didn't run block that well. Lee has fumbled twice in 2 weeks, and he's averaging 7 or 8 yards a carry. So they got to fix that because he looks like he's pretty good.
A friend of mine who does some coaching talk about the running game. He said what they got to do is throw their tight ends more over the middle so those linebackers will back off a little bit because they're moving up. They get 7 men up front, and when the linebackers are up tight like that. He said they got to loosen them up. And if you look, the tight ends were wide open all day.
They hit them. They hit them too. They had Strange went for 40. Johnson went for 37. The tight ends got 130 yards in receptions.
Yeah, they're playing really well. I think all 3 of those tight ends are capable of being really good.
Yeah, I would say in fairness with the running game that I think opponents are forcing Clifford, as I mentioned earlier, to beat them. Mm-hmm. Based on what they saw last year, I wonder how long teams are going to be able to afford to do that. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Over on defense, they're not getting the kind of pressure on the quarterback that maybe you would have thought. Now, I know Bo Nix was getting rid of that ball very quickly.
Like hot potato.
Right, and that's very smart. But I think as the season goes along, you're going to see them, Ebiketie and the rest of the crew, start getting more pressure on the QB.
They bowed up when they had to, but when it was 21-10, and that was an opportunity to maybe put the hammer down on defense, they allowed Auburn to go 75 yards, almost all of it on the ground. I was surprised they were gashed in the run game, kind of like they were.
I think we beat 2 really good teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm anxious to see going forward this year to see how Wisconsin and Auburn play out because I was really impressed with Auburn's running game. I thought they were good. And I think Bo Nix did a decent job in there, that he was in there.
I think James said Tank was the best running back they may see all year.
Yeah, and listen, we're nitpicking here.
Yeah.
I know Neil's family hates it when I rip him. I'm joking, but I mean when you win 2 games like they've won, obviously 3 games, but talking about those 2 ranked teams, most things are going really well, and we're nitpicking because that's kind of what we do.
Yeah. We are the nitwits. And now coming up after a quick break, we have more possibly about James Franklin being linked to a job out on the West Coast. This after the break.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. We are joined by the Nitwits. Neil, you're saying who was someone you wanted to give a shout out to?
Well, I think we need to mention Jordan Stout before the show's over, just because he's averaging 50 yards a punt, 4 more
Those
punts.
Aren't punts. Those are just bombs.
Well, 50 through 3 games. So really, it's been an all-American performance here so far, and a big factor in a kind of a close game.
Thank you, Anderley, for helping keeping him in line.
Not only his punting, but his kickoffs have all gone into the end zone. So you should mention that too.
So we got that done. Yeah.
And also, it was all over earlier this week. Talks of James Franklin being linked to the job at USC. Realistically, what does this mean for the program, and does James take this job at the end of the season?
My gut feeling is I would be surprised by that, but I think he's smart to leave it open. Mm-hmm. Number one, he's still fighting to get the improvements made within the program, facilities and all those different things. If you look at some of the lists of where Penn State's facilities and everything are compared to a lot of other programs of that stature, that's one thing that he's done that I think is underappreciated. When he got to Penn State, he has really committed to not only, taking care of himself financially, but making sure Penn State invests in the facilities the way that it needs to.
Let me ask you, when's enough? I mean, the guy's making $7 million a year.
I'm not saying his salary. Okay. I think I just said investing in facilities for Penn State.
Jay Paterno voted against the Lash building, the $50 million
and that probably didn't help. I mean, those messages maybe Franklin doesn't feel universal support there, keeping his options open. He's never been consecutively really anywhere close to 8 years. He's 49 years old, so we'll see. I think he's going to have a lot of options. I would hope that Penn State would be a destination job, and I will say this: if there's another job out there, whether it's USC or wherever, and if he has a great year, he'll have plenty of opportunities. I don't know that he's going to have the atmosphere and support that you saw the other night.
I think he'd be making a wrong decision. I mean, he's recruiting all these kids now and coming in, and he's a Pennsylvania guy himself, so going out to California would be a different atmosphere for him, and I think he'd lose a lot of the contacts and whatever he has. So, but I think Mark's right, is probably just a negotiating chip that he has right now, that leave it open and then maybe get some more things done down there, I guess.
And obviously there's a long way to go before any kind of decision needs to be made. And even since that all came out earlier in the week, there's been 30 other guys who have emerged as quote-unquote leading candidates. So we'll see how it plays out. But my gut feeling, I think he'll be here next year. That's just my gut.
Awesome.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. The Pennsylvania thing will maybe be a key to keep him here. But coming up after a break, best part of the week, of course, we'll go over the Nitwit of the week and our predictions for next week against Villanova.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by NovaCare, Altoona and State College. We proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, attorneys at law. Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Well, time now for the best part of the week, Nitwit of the week. And Mr. Riddell claims that one after picking the Auburn score most closely. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Crowning achievement.
Anderly.
Get on the board there.
I'm looking closely. I think you're in a tie with the deflated ball.
I got to give Neil credit because he hit the exact margin. So even though he squeezed me, I had 7, you got 8. But congratulations, Neil. Good job.
I appreciate it, Mark. Good luck this week.
And for the Nova game coming up, what are our predictions? Who's going to go first?
Well, that would be me. How about this score is famous in Penn State history. I'm going to say 48-14 Penn State. I think they're rolling right now. There'll be a little bit of emotional letdown, but I think they have enough talent that they can kind of name their score this week. 48-14.
Mike, what about you?
I'm going to go with a little higher than Neil, 60-7. 60-7. And I do want to give one shout out. My old roommate used to coach Villanova, Jim Weaver. And I had a fraternity brother of mine call me and say, make sure you mention Weaver about Villanova. He was there for 5 games. Then he ended up going to Virginia Tech as the athletic director. But so Jim Weaver was my old roommate and was a coach at Villanova.
And what about you?
Yeah, listen, Villanova is a good team at its level, but I don't think it's going to be ready for the combination of speed, size, and athleticism, overall athleticism that Penn State's going to hit it with. I'll go Penn State 45, Villanova 10.
And I think 45-10 as well.
Well, you can't do that.
I literally
I'm giving
have
you
it.
a chance.
I have it.
I'm giving you a chance to amend
half
that.
the ball.
They're all against me.
Convention nitwits.
So do I have to change
You
it?
guys just
you're
get a half a
squeezing
ball.
it.
Okay, do you want to rock, paper, scissors it?
I'll change my pick, okay?
Okay.
I will go 47-14.
For the record,
my
I did offer rock, paper, scissors here, which is the only fair way to fix things.
It's okay.
I think you should have stayed with your first guess.
No, listen,
And
I
then
tried to be fair, but then I went and I squeezed Neil.
Well,
May the best nitwit win. How's that?
Okay. Cross-state game,
Yeah.
of course, and Villanova basketball
Let's
school.
get a basketball series with it too. How about that?
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
What does it mean to have these interstate sort of or intrastate matchups?
I think this is great for Villanova.
Yeah.
You know, listen, it's a traditionally a good program at its level, and to be able to come up, and, this is, I think they got 12,000 fans for one of their games, 4,000 for another. For these kids to be able to come up and play in that atmosphere, again, these are well-coached, good football players. To have that opportunity, I think it's spectacular. And then for Penn State, listen, if they're able to take care of business and do what they probably should do, maybe they get an opportunity to play the backups a little bit more, get some guys some experience. So I think this is a win-win all the way around. A lot of people are down on these types of games, but I think this is a win-win for both programs.
It is good to get the other players in, the guys that don't get to play very often, so they get a little experience of being in there and say, hey, I played a few games or whatever. I agree with Mark on that.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Nittany Nation Overtime with the Nitwits. We will see you next week.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, Attorneys at Law, Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.